The old masters spoke differently here, their voices more immediate, their presence more intimate, as if they had shed the weight of history and now addressed the visitor directly. Frick Madison was more than a temporary home. It was a dialogue between past and present, between traditional architecture and modern sensibility. The minimalist galleries forced the eye to focus on the art itself, stripping away the familiar comforts of the mansion to reveal the essence of each masterpiece. Visitors were reminded that, while architecture frames art, true brilliance lies in the work itself, in the brushstroke, the pigment, the emotion frozen in time. Yet the spirit of the Frick remained intact. Even within stark walls, the collection exuded intimacy. Visitors moved slowly, quietly, as if stepping through an echo of the Fifth Avenue mansion. The sense of contemplation, of reverence, of connection with centuries of human creativity, all of it endured. Frick Madison proved that the collection was not bound by its building. It was alive in every frame, every canvas, every sculpture. The temporary relocation also offered a glimpse of the future. It demonstrated the adaptability of the collection and the museum's commitment to accessibility, scholarship, and innovation. It reminded the world that tradition and modernity need not be opposed, that even in a concrete and steel space, the soul of the Frick could flourish. And yet, for all the excitement of the modern chapter, anticipation grew. The Fifth Avenue mansion was being restored, prepared to welcome visitors once more into its luminous halls, its sunlit garden court, its intimate parlors and galleries. The collection would return to its historic home, but enriched by the lessons of Frick Madison, carrying both tradition and new perspective into the next century. In the end, the Frick collection proves that art is timeless, not confined to walls or windows, but living wherever it is seen, felt, and understood. Whether in a gilded mansion or a modernist space, its masterpieces continue to inspire, to calm, and to awaken wonder. And the future of the Frick is a promise that beauty, carefully curated and generously shared, will endure, evolve, and speak to every generation. Morning awakens over Manhattan. A thin line of gold stretches across the horizon, spilling over the rooftops and tracing the edges of glass and steel. The skyline, still wrapped in a haze of dawn, begins to shimmer as sunlight glides across the towers of Midtown. The city exhales, its heartbeat quickens. The hum of distant traffic, the quiet murmur of early footsteps, the echo of a subway deep below, all blend into a gentle symphony that only New York can play. Steam rises from street grates, drifting lazily in the cool morning air. Yellow taxis glide along the avenues, their reflections flashing across the wet pavement. Newspaper stands open, and the fragrance of coffee mingles with the scent of rain on stone. The city stirs vast alive, unstoppable. But on the corner of Fifth Avenue and East 70th Street, something changes. The rhythm softens, the noise fades. Here, amid the ceaseless movement, stands the sanctuary, the Frick collection. Its limestone facade glows softly in the morning light, pale and dignified against the deep blue sky. Tall windows glint like eyes that have watched over the avenue for more than a century. Iron gates and a row of perfectly kept trees frame the entrance, their leaves rustling gently in the breeze. It feels as though you've stepped out of the city and into another time. Behind those walls lies a different New York, one of elegance, reflection, and quiet beauty. A place where whispers replace horns, and footsteps echo softly against marble floors. The Frick stands not just as a museum, but as a memory of a more graceful age. It carries the spirit of an era when art and architecture intertwined, when beauty was crafted with patience and care. As the first visitors approach, the great doors open in silence. Sunlight slips across the marble steps, pouring into the entrance hall, brushing against polished wood and golden frames. Inside, the air feels cooler, calmer, scented faintly with history and the warmth of time. Every detail, from the carved moldings to the stillness of the garden court beyond, invites you to pause, to breathe, to listen. Outside, the city surges forward, cars, conversations, and skyscrapers chasing the day. But within these walls, time slows. Each room, each corridor, each painting seems to hold its breath, waiting for you to enter. The Frick collection does not demand attention, it invites it. It is not a monument of noise and spectacle, but of peace and quiet revelation. As the sunlight continues its gentle path through the city, the mansion awakens, ready once more to share its timeless treasures with those who seek not motion, but meaning. Every great museum begins not with walls or paintings, but with a dream. And the story of the Frick collection begins with one man's extraordinary vision. Henry Clay Frick. Born in 1849 in western Pennsylvania, Frick came from modest beginnings. As a young man, he possessed a sharp mind, relentless determination, and an instinct for opportunity. He built his fortune in the American steel industry, partnering with Andrew Carnegie to help shape the skyline of the modern world. His business empire grew vast, and with it, his influence. But behind the power and the wealth, Frick harbored a quieter passion, one that would define his true legacy. From an early age, Frick had been captivated by art. He found in it something that money could never buy, a sense of peace, beauty, and eternity. To him, paintings were not just possessions, they were living presences, windows into genius, into soul, into truth. As his fortune grew, he began to collect, not out of vanity, but with a collector's discipline and a poet's heart. He studied the masters, traveled to Europe, and filled his home with works by Vermeer, Rembrandt, Goya, Turner, and Titian. Each acquisition was deliberate, chosen for harmony, not excess. Frick sought works that spoke softly, that carried a quiet strength. He once said he wanted his home to be a place of beauty that would uplift and educate. He imagined a sanctuary, far from the chaos of industry, a place where art could live in balance with life. By the early 1900s, Frick had decided that New York City, the beating heart of American ambition, would be the home for his collection. He purchased land along Fifth Avenue, facing Central Park, and commissioned the architect Thomas Hastings to build a mansion unlike any other. It would be grand, yet intimate, luxurious, yet serene, a house that felt like a home but breathed like a museum. Construction began in 1912. Day by day, the limestone walls rose, shaped by the same precision and care Frick demanded in all his ventures. He oversaw every detail from the proportions of the rooms to the placement of windows that would let in just the right light for each painting. Even the gardens were designed to create a sense of calm before one entered the art within. When the mansion was completed in 1914, Frick and his family moved in, surrounded by masterpieces. The great portraits of Rembrandt watched over the library. Vermeer's women gazed out in quiet thought. Bellini's St. Francis in the desert glowed in its own space, radiant in its stillness. The house had become more than a residence. It was a living gallery, a dialogue between beauty and architecture. Frick did not want his art to vanish behind private walls. He wanted it to endure, to be shared, studied, loved. And so, in his will, he made a promise to the future, that his home would one day become a museum for all people. He wanted the public to walk through his rooms just as he had to feel the same quiet awe, the same peace of mind, the same joy in the presence of art. When Henry Clay Frick passed away in 19, his vision remained, carved into stone, preserved in silence, waiting. Years later, his dream would open to the world, not as a monument to wealth, but as a testament to the transformative power of beauty. The Frick collection stands today because one man believed that art could heal, inspire, and connect the human spirit, that amid the noise of progress and power, there must always be a place for grace. The mansion that Henry Clay Frick built was more than an address, it was a reflection of a life devoted to art, order, and grace. Standing proudly along Fifth Avenue, overlooking the quiet greens of Central Park, the Frick Mansion became a world apart from the restless rhythm of New York. It was a house designed not merely to impress, but to inspire. From the outside, its limestone facade radiates timeless dignity, neither shouting nor competing with its surroundings, but commanding attention through harmony and proportion. Every line of its architecture speaks of balance, a dialogue between power and peace, luxury and restraint. Architect Thomas Hastings, who shared Frick's sense of refinement, designed it in the style of the great European palaces, blending French classicism with quiet American strength. Step through the tall bronze doors, and the noise of the city fades instantly. A hush settles, a calm so deep it feels sacred. The entrance hall opens like a breath of serenity. Polished marble floors stretch beneath your feet, and light streams gently through tall windows, gliding across the surface of warm oak panels and soft golden fabrics. Every element feels considered, deliberate, human. The mansion's grand staircase curves upward, its banister carved with the care of a sculptor's hand. Each step echoes softly, a reminder that even movement here must be graceful. Above, chandeliers shimmer like constellations suspended in still air. Their crystals scatter light across portraits that line the walls, faces of noblemen and women from centuries past, their eyes following you with quiet curiosity. In the living hall, the centerpiece of the home, paintings by the masters hang in delicate conversation. On one side, Giovanni Bellini's St. Francis in the desert glows with divine tranquility, a saint in harmony with nature, his soul illuminated by unseen light. Nearby, Vermeer's intimate compositions whisper of domestic calm and mystery. Rembrandt's brush captures the dignity of age, while Turner's seascapes shimmer with the energy of wind and water. Each painting seems perfectly placed, not displayed, but belonging. And yet, the mansion never feels like a gallery. It breathes like a home. Frick wanted visitors to experience art as he did, not as something distant or academic, but as a living presence that shares the same air. Fireplaces glow softly beneath gilded mirrors. Silk curtains fall in folds of light. The scent of polished wood and fresh flowers lingers faintly in the air. It is easy to imagine an evening here, a century ago, candles flickering, music drifting from a piano, and the quiet hum of conversation beneath painted ceilings. In every room, the architecture becomes a frame, not for itself, but for the art it shelters. The library, lined with leather-bound volumes, invites reflection beneath portraits of philosophers and kings. The drawing rooms blend intimacy with grandeur, each corner revealing a new harmony of texture, tone, and design. Even the windows seem to participate, filtering sunlight to fall just right upon the paintings, as though the house itself understands their needs. But beyond its elegance, the mansion has something deeper, a presence, a soul. It feels inhabited not only by history, but by the quiet intentions of its creator. Frick built it as a legacy of beauty, a place where future generations could experience the same stillness he cherished. You can sense it in the silence, a silence not of emptiness, but of listening. As you walk from one room to the next, you begin to realize that the mansion itself is a work of art, one that holds its breath between the past and the present. Every corridor, every archway, every gentle curve of light reminds you that art is not confined to canvas or stone. It can live in walls, in air, in the very rhythm of a building. And so, the Frick Mansion stands not only as a vessel for masterpieces, but as one itself. It is the soul of its founder made visible, a quiet dialogue between ambition and peace, between the world outside and the world within. The heart of the Frick collection beats not in its walls or corridors, but in the luminous presence of its paintings, masterpieces that span centuries, yet speak with one voice, the quiet power of beauty. As you step into the galleries, the air seems to change. Light falls softly upon gilded frames, dust motes drifting like tiny stars between worlds. Every wall tells a story, every brushstroke a heartbeat from another time. You do not simply look at the art here, you listen to it. In the living hall, where the echoes of footsteps dissolve into stillness, Giovanni Bellini's St. Francis in the Desert stands as a beacon of serenity. Painted more than 500 years ago, it radiates a light that feels eternal, a moment suspended between earth and heaven. St. Francis stands before a landscape of divine calm, bathed in golden light, his eyes lifted in wonder as if hearing the voice of creation itself. The painting glows with life, its silence louder than words, its peace deeper than sound. Across the room, Rembrandt's portraits capture the human spirit in all its complexity, faces carved from shadow and light, eyes that reveal pride, sorrow, and the gentle fatigue of wisdom. In the Polish writer, a solitary figure rides into an uncertain landscape, his gaze distant, his purpose mysterious. It is both a journey and a question, a portrait of courage, wrapped in melancholy. Rembrandt's genius was not to show what people looked like, but what they felt. He painted souls, not faces. Move further, and you meet Johannes Vermeer, whose works are like whispers between worlds. In his Mistress and Maid, a woman sits by her writing table, caught in a moment of decision, a letter in her hand, a thought in her eyes. Light pours through the unseen window, washing the scene in quiet radiance. No painter has ever understood light the way Vermeer did, not merely as illumination, but as emotion. Every shimmer on silk, every reflection on glass, feels alive, as if the air itself is thinking. Nearby, you find Velázquez, Goya, Titian, and El Greco, giants of the European imagination. Each brings a different language of beauty. Titian's colors burn with Venetian warmth, reds and golds that pulse like the human heart. Velázquez captures dignity and restraint, a nobility that comes from simplicity. Goya, dark and daring, paints truth without mercy, the beauty of humanity intertwined with its madness. El Greco stretches form and color toward the divine, his saints rising in waves of light, their bodies elongated like prayers reaching heaven. Here, each painting feels not isolated, but connected as if they are conversing across centuries. Rembrandt's shadows speak to Vermeer's light. Bellini's stillness answers Titian's fire. They exist together in perfect harmony, a chorus of genius conducted by time. Even the frames, gilded, carved, and aged, seem part of this music. The soft lamps that illuminate them cast warm halos that turn paint into presence. As you walk, the air carries an almost sacred quiet. You begin to sense what Henry Clay Frick understood so deeply, that true art is not meant to overwhelm, it is meant to reveal. It does not shout for your attention, it invites your silence. In this mansion, the masters live not in the past, but in an eternal present. Their works are not relics behind glass, but windows through which we see ourselves, our longing, our frailty, our grace. You realize that the Frick collection is not just a museum of art, it is a mirror of humanity, a reflection of what endures when all else fades. And in the soft light of these rooms, you understand why Frick built this place, not for spectacle, but for stillness. He wanted the soul to rest here. He wanted beauty to speak quietly, and to be heard forever. Among the many treasures that dwell within the Frick collection, there is one room that feels unlike any other, a space where art does not merely rest upon the walls, but dances across them, in a timeless waltz of light and color. This is the Fragonard room, a chamber devoted to joy, passion, and the fleeting beauty of love. The moment you step inside, the mood shifts. Gone is the solemn grandeur of Rembrandt and Bellini. Here, the air feels lighter, fragrant, warm, alive. Sunlight filters through the curtains, gently illuminating walls that pulse with the soft pinks and golds of an eternal spring. This is not a place of silence and introspection, but of laughter and whispered secrets. Every brushstroke seems to sing. The walls are adorned with Jean Honor, Fragonard's masterpiece series, The Progress of Love. For immense panels, painted in the 1770s for Madame du Barry, the mistress of King Louis XV of France. They tell a story of love's tender journey, its innocence, its discovery, its joy, its melancholy. Each painting unfolds like a verse in a poem. each scene a memory frozen in the glow of youth. In the pursuit, we see a young man offering flowers to his beloved, a moment of anticipation, of hearts trembling with the thrill of possibility. In the meeting, their hands finally touch beneath a canopy of roses, their faces radiant with new affection. The lover crown bursts with triumph, the woman placing a wreath of blossoms upon her suitor's head as if love itself had been declared victorious. And finally, in love letters, time has passed. The lovers are older, their faces gentler, their stories softened by memory. What remains is tenderness, a quiet acknowledgement that love, though changed, endures. Fragonard's brushwork is alive with movement, a ballet of color and air. The folds of silk, the shimmer of leaves, the fleeting expressions that flicker across faces, all rendered with a spontaneity that feels as fresh as the day it was painted. He was not merely illustrating romance. He was capturing the feeling of it, the lightness, the unpredictability, the way it rushes through the heart like wind through the trees. In this room, time bends. The 18th century seems to breathe again, a world of powdered wigs, garden fetes, and secret rendezvous beneath the stars. And yet, beyond the elegance and flirtation, there is something deeply human here. Fragonard reminds us that love, in all its forms, is both a joy and a mystery, as fragile as a petal, as eternal as art itself. The Fragonard room was one of Henry Clay Frick's most beloved spaces. He adored the painter's wit and vitality, the way his art celebrated emotion without apology. In a museum filled with solemn majesty, this room offered laughter, a reminder that beauty is not only found in stillness, but in the movement of the heart. Every element around you, the gilded frames, the rococo furniture, the delicate tapestries that complement the paintings, was arranged with exquisite care. It is not merely a display, it is a stage, where light performs its daily play upon color and form. When the afternoon sun touches the panels, they shimmer like dreams. The lovers' gestures, their glances, their dance beneath the painted sky, they seem to move again, alive within the golden light. The Fragonard room is more than an exhibit. It is a celebration of life's lighter tones of joy, beauty, and fleeting time. It invites the visitor to pause, not in reverence, but in delight, to smile, to remember, to feel the warmth of youth no matter the age. And as you leave this luminous room and step back into the cool halls of the mansion, you carry with you something invisible, a sense of happiness that art, at its best, can awaken. A reminder that amid all the solemn grandeur of the world's masterpieces, sometimes the truest art is simply the story of love itself. At the heart of the Frick collection lies a sanctuary within a sanctuary, a place where the noise of the world fades, and time, once again, seems to stop. This is the garden court, the soul of the museum, a space not filled with paintings or sculptures, but with something far rarer, pure tranquility. You enter through an arched doorway, and at once, the air changes. The faint echo of footsteps softens against the marble floor, and a gentle light filters down from the glass ceiling above. The city of New York feels distant, as though you have stepped not into another room, but into another realm entirely. A pool of still water rests at the center, its surface broken only by the quiet ripple of fountains. Their rhythm is slow and soothing, like the measured breathing of the building itself. Palms and ferns stretch upward toward the skylight, their leaves shimmering as if painted by sunlight. Marble columns rise on either side, their reflections merging with the calm water below. Everything here is balance, symmetry, silence, grace. This indoor courtyard was once a bold idea, a blend of classical design and modern serenity. When Henry Clay Frick envisioned his home, he did not want a mere hallway between galleries. He wanted a refuge, a living, breathing heart that would connect his collection to the rhythm of nature. He believed art should be experienced not only with the eyes, but with the soul. And so, this court became the quiet pulse of the mansion, a place where beauty could rest between the masterpieces. Look closer, and the details whisper their secrets. The bronze fountains are the work of sculptor Adolf Weinmann, their design inspired by the elegance of Roman villas. Each figure, each curve, carries the spirit of antiquity, reminding visitors that beauty transcends time and place. The pale marble, the glistening tiles, and the sunlight playing through the glass ceiling create a harmony that feels almost sacred. In the morning, the light is cool and silver, spreading across the water like mist. By afternoon, it turns golden, dancing across the palms and tracing shadows along the columns. As evening falls, the fountains whisper softer, their sound blending with the hush of the museum, a lullaby for art and memory alike. Visitors often pause here longer than they plan to. Some sit silently on the benches, their reflections mirrored in the pool, their thoughts adrift among the ripples. Others simply close their eyes and listen to the fountains, the air, the quiet conversation between stone and light. It is a place for reflection, not only of water, but of spirit. Here, surrounded by marble and life, you begin to understand why the Frick collection feels so different. It is not a museum of crowds or spectacle. It is a home for art, for peace, for that still, fleeting moment between thought and beauty. The garden court bridges the living and the timeless. It reminds us that art does not exist apart from life. It flows with it, like water through marble, And as you stand in this chamber of calm, you realize that Frick's vision was not only about collecting masterpieces, but about creating harmony between man, art, and nature. Step back once more before leaving. Look at the reflection of the ceiling in the water, the way it mirrors the world above. In that reflection, you see the balance of it all, the old and the new, the city and the stillness, the fleeting and the eternal. The garden court is not merely a room, it is the museum's heartbeat, a breath of eternity. In the midst of a restless city, the air changes again as you step deeper into the galleries. The soft trickle of fountains fades, and the quiet hum of the city disappears completely. Before you lies the beating heart of the Frick collection, a world painted not with sound or motion, but with light and shadow. Here dwell the old masters, artists whose hands shape the way we see beauty itself. Their works hang in silence, each one a conversation between time and eternity. Frick did not collect names, he collected souls. And in these rooms, they still speak. The walls glow with deep, muted colors, ochres, umbers, and golds that echo the warmth of candlelight. The air is still, almost reverent, as if each painting holds its own breath. And perhaps, in a way, it does. For these are not merely works of art, they are fragments of human experience, preserved forever in pigment and patience. You turn a corner, and there the piercing gaze of Rembrandt van Rijn. In his self-portrait he stares out from the centuries, his eyes alive with wisdom, fatigue, and quiet defiance. Every stroke of paint seems to tremble with emotion. Rembrandt painted not the face, but the life behind it, the doubts, the losses, the endurance. Light falls softly across his cheek, while shadows cloak the rest, a mirror of the soul itself. Forever, half in light, half in darkness. Nearby, Johannes Vermeer's mistress and maid captures a moment so intimate it feels like an echo of thought. A woman pauses with a letter in her hand, her maid waiting silently beside her. The light from the unseen window grazes the page, turning stillness into drama, silence into mystery. Vermeer painted not grand gestures, but the quiet poetry of everyday life, a world where even sunlight has emotion. Then there is Titian, the Venetian master of color and myth. His portrait of a man in a red cap radiates vitality, a presence so strong, you half expect the figure to turn and speak. The skin glows with warmth, the fabric shimmers with texture, and the eyes burn with human energy. Titian painted like a poet, every color a word, every shadow a secret. J.M.W. Turner's Harbor of Dieppe fills the room with light golden mist. Distant sails, a world suspended between sky and sea. He was the painter of atmosphere, of nature's untamed moods, of the sublime moment when beauty and chaos become one. Standing before it, you feel the air shimmer, a storm of color that swirls not only across the canvas, but within you. Each painting here tells a different story, but together, they form a single truth that art is the most human of legacies. Across centuries, across continents, these artists shared one language: light. The way it reveals, conceals, transforms. The way it turns a face into a memory, a shadow into a feeling, a brushstroke into a heartbeat. Henry Clay Frick understood this deeply. He surrounded himself not with noise or novelty, but with works that carried the gravity of life itself. He wanted his home to feel eternal, a place where beauty could outlive time. And here, among the old masters, that dream lives on. Visitors move quietly through the galleries, their faces brushed by the same light that once touched these paintings centuries ago. It is a humbling thought that what you see today, some painter once saw by candlelight, their hand trembling slightly as they reached for perfection. The Frick collection is more than a museum of masterpieces. It is a dialogue between artist and admirer, between past and present, between what is seen and what is felt. In these rooms, surrounded by centuries of light and shadow, you begin to sense what Frick must have known all along, that art is not only something to behold, but something that beholds you. Henry Clay Frick was a man of contrasts, a titan of industry. He shaped the landscape of America's steel and coal empires. Yet behind the power, the wealth, and the relentless drive, there existed a quieter force, a profound devotion to beauty. Where others saw paintings as possessions or status symbols, Frick saw companions for the soul. Each canvas, each sculpture, each delicate vase was chosen with care, not for fame, but for harmony, for resonance, for the way it made the heart pause and the mind reflect. Frick's home was his sanctuary. Every detail of the mansion, from the limestone facade to the marble floors of the entrance hall, was conceived to honor the art it sheltered. He believed that the experience of beauty was as important as the object itself, that a painting needed the right light, a sculpture the right space, and every work of art a context that spoke to the human spirit. But Frick's vision extended beyond private appreciation. He understood that beauty, once discovered, grows in meaning when shared. He imagined a place where future generations could wander through rooms designed not merely to display art, but to cultivate stillness, contemplation, and awe. In his will, he ensured that the mansion would be transformed into a public museum, a gift of culture, grace, and intellect to the city he loved. After his death in 1919, the promise began to unfold. His daughter, Helen Clay Frick, worked tirelessly to preserve her father's vision. She safeguarded the mansion, the gardens, and the collection. ensuring that the Frick would remain a place of intimacy and reflection rather than a sprawling, impersonal institution. The museum opened to the public in 1935, and visitors immediately sensed what Frick had always known: that true art deserves silence as much as it does admiration, that a home for masterpieces must feel alive, yet serene. And that beauty is best experienced not in haste, but in quiet immersion. The Frick collection today is a living legacy. It is a place where music, lectures, and exhibitions continue to enrich the experience of art. But at its core, it remains a home, a space where paintings converse with marble, where light dances across walls, and where every visitor becomes part of a story that began over a century ago. Henry Clay Frick's gift was more than his collection. It was his philosophy that life is enriched when beauty is present, that culture flourishes when it is shared, and that the human spirit finds peace when surrounded by art that inspires, comforts, and challenges. Walking through the galleries, you feel the presence of this vision. It is in the careful arrangement of rooms, in the way sunlight falls across a canvas, in the hush of the garden court, and in the quiet thrill of discovering a masterpiece around every corner. Frick did not simply collect art, he collected experience and then gave it to the world. The Frick collection is, in every sense, a home for beauty, and the legacy of Henry Clay Frick endures not only in the paintings he loved, but in the hearts of all who enter his doors and take a moment to see the world as he did through the lens of elegance, harmony, and timeless wonder. Even the most timeless institutions must adapt to the currents of change. For the Frick collection, this meant a bold experiment: the temporary relocation to Frick Madison, housed in the iconic modernist building designed by Marcel Breuer on Madison Avenue. Gone were the familiar walls of the Fifth Avenue mansion, the quiet wood paneling, the marble staircases, the sun-drenched garden court. Instead, visitors encountered stark concrete walls, soaring ceilings, and a minimalist, almost austere environment. It was a radical reimagining, an opportunity to see the collection anew, to witness centuries of European masterpieces in a setting that emphasized space, light, and form over ornamentation. The contrast was immediate. Vermeer's delicate light seemed sharper, more ethereal against the raw concrete. Rembrandt's shadows deepened, revealing subtleties in texture, an expression that might have been softened by the mansion's warmth. The old masters spoke differently here, their voices more immediate, their presence more intimate, as if they had shed the weight of history and now addressed the visitor directly. Frick Madison was more than a temporary home. It was a dialogue between past and present, between traditional architecture and modern sensibility. The minimalist galleries forced the eye to focus on the art itself, stripping away the familiar comforts of the mansion to reveal the essence of each masterpiece. Visitors were reminded that while architecture frames art, true brilliance lies in the work itself, in the brushstroke, the pigment, the emotion frozen in time. Yet the spirit of the Frick remained intact. Even within stark walls, the collection exuded intimacy. Visitors moved slowly, quietly, as if stepping through an echo of the Fifth Avenue mansion. The sense of contemplation, of reverence, of connection with centuries of human creativity, all of it endured. Frick Madison proved that the collection was not bound by its building. It was alive in every frame, every canvas, every sculpture. The temporary relocation also offered a glimpse of the future. It demonstrated the adaptability of the collection and the museum's commitment to accessibility, scholarship, and innovation. It reminded the world that tradition and modernity need not be opposed, that even in a concrete and steel space, the soul of the Frick could flourish. And yet, for all the excitement of the modern chapter, anticipation grew. The Fifth Avenue mansion was being restored, prepared to welcome visitors once more into its luminous halls, its sunlit garden court, its intimate parlors and galleries. The collection would return to its historic home, but enriched by the lessons of Frick Madison, carrying both tradition and new perspective into the next century. In the end, the Frick collection proves that art is timeless, not confined to walls or windows, but living wherever it is seen, felt, and understood. Whether in a gilded mansion or a modernist space, its masterpieces continue to inspire, to calm, and to awaken wonder. And the future of the Frick is a promise that beauty, carefully curated and generously shared, will endure, evolve, and speak to every generation. As evening descends over Manhattan, the city exhales in a golden glow. The towers of Midtown reflect the last rays of the sun, while Fifth Avenue hums with a softer rhythm, the day winding down like a long, measured breath. And there, amid the city's fading light, stands the Frick collection, its limestone facade glowing gently against the twilight sky. The world outside continues its relentless pace, but within these walls, time slows. Shadows stretch across marble floors, and the golden lamplight flickers softly on the frames of centuries-old masterpieces. Inside, the galleries grow hushed. The portraits, sculptures, and paintings rest in quiet dignity, their forms softened by the fading light. Rembrandt's faces, Vermeer's women, Bellini's landscapes, all seem to pause, as if aware of the transient beauty of the world beyond. Even the fountains in the garden court murmur a gentle farewell to the day, echoing the rhythm of the city, yet untouched by its clamor. The Frick is more than a museum. It is a guardian of memory, a vessel of beauty, a home for the human spirit. Its rooms hold stories of love, courage, and contemplation. Its walls whisper of the hands that painted, the collectors who cherished, and the visitors who, generation after generation, have come seeking quiet wonder. As darkness settles over the avenue, the mansion remains luminous. Its presence is subtle, yet profound. A quiet testament to the vision of Henry Clay Frick, a man who understood that beauty is eternal when it is shared, that art is not merely an object, but a companion for the soul. Standing before the Frick at twilight, one feels a sense of continuity, the past and present entwined, the city bustling yet somehow at peace, and the knowledge that within these walls, the human heart will always find space to rest, to reflect, to be moved. The Frick collection, in its elegance, intimacy, and timeless grace, reminds us that even in the midst of a restless, modern world, there exist places where beauty holds sway, where history whispers softly, and where the spirit of art endures, quietly, eternally, waiting for every visitor who dares to enter and listen. And as night blankets the city, the Frick stands ready, a luminous beacon of calm, its doors open in silence, inviting all who pass to step inside, to slow down, and to find, in the heart of Manhattan, a home for beauty that never fades.